She didn't ask for money. She asked to help, so she wouldn't be sent away. When a billionaire welcomed her in a quiet misunderstanding, triggered a legal storm. One child's calm voice forced a courtroom to decide, is safety something you earn or something every child deserves in the end finally? The iron gate of the Beacon Hill townhouse was built to keep the world out. It did that job well. Calder Wexley stood inside the warmth of his entry hall coat, still on phone buzzing with messages he would not read. Outside Boston, winter pressed its face against the stone like a patient creditor, cold, quiet, unrelenting. That was when he heard it. Not a knock, not a call. A voice, small, steady, almost careful. "Excuse me, sir. I can help." Calder turned. Beyond the gate, beneath a street lamp dulled by frost, stood a little girl. She held a faded backpack against her chest with both arms as if it were something alive. Her hair was neat. Her coat was thin. Her posture unnaturally polite for someone so young. She didn't step closer. She didn't plead. "I can help clean," she added quickly as if clarifying terms. "Or water plants." "I'm quiet." Calder felt something tighten in his chest. Not fear, not alarm, but the uncomfortable pressure of being seen when he didn't want to be. He was 41 years old, worth billions on paper, and profoundly unprepared for a child who asked for nothing except usefulness. "What's your name?" he asked. "Junie," she said. "Junie Hart." Junie Calder repeated, opening the gate just enough to speak without towering over her. "It's very cold." She nodded. "I know." A pause. Snow whispered against stone. "I don't need money," Junie said as if she'd practiced. "Just a place for tonight. I'll be gone in the morning." Calder looked past her, no adults, no shadows following, just the city holding its breath, against every instinct to call security to outsource the moment he opened the gate wider. "Come in," he said. Junie stepped across the threshold like it mattered. Warmth met Junie before words did. The townhouse smelled faintly of cedar and lemon polish, clean, quiet, untouched by urgency. Calder led her to the kitchen without commentary, keeping his movements slow, deliberate. He poured water. He set out soup. Nothing fancy. Nothing conditional. Junie sat straight-backed on the edge of the chair, hands folded in her lap until he nodded that it was okay. She ate carefully, as if speed might cost her something. Between spoonfuls, her eyes mapped exits, corners, clocks. Calder noticed and looked away, giving her privacy without abandonment. Inez Cabrera appeared in the doorway, soft shoes, sharp instincts. She took in the scene in a single breath, the child, the bowl, Calder's tense stillness. "Hello, sweetheart," Inez said gently. "Hello, ma'am," Junie replied. "Not miss. Not auntie." "Ma'am." Inez's mouth tightened, then softened. "You can call me Inez." Junie nodded, filed it away. Calder cleared his throat. "You can rest here tonight," he said, choosing each word as if it had legal weight. "Tomorrow I'll call someone whose job is to help kids. Properly." Junie didn't flinch. "Okay, no protest, no bargaining." He reached into his wallet, then stopped. Instead, he slid a folded napkin toward her. "If you need anything," he said, "you ask." "You don't have to, I can help," Junie said quickly. "I won't be in the way." Inez met Calder's eyes, a warning wrapped in kindness. "We do things right in this house," she said quietly. Calder nodded. "Yes, we do." Junie finished her soup and stood without being asked. She rinsed her bowl, dried it, placed it carefully upside down. It was a small act, almost invisible, but it landed heavy. Calder realized then she wasn't trying to be helpful. She was trying to be allowed. Calder offered the guest sofa, a blanket, a pillow still wrapped in linen. He kept his distance the way adults should. Junie set her backpack down gently like a promise she didn't want to break. "I can do things in the morning," she said, "before school time." "If there is school." "There is," Calder said. and you won't be doing things for a place to sleep." She looked up at him, then really looked. "I don't need money," Junie said again, firmer now. "I just don't want to be sent away." Calder reached for his wallet out of habit. The movement felt wrong the instant he made it. He stopped, closed it, and set it aside. "This isn't about earning," he said. "You stay because you're a child. That's it." Junie frowned, processing. "But grown-ups get upset when I don't do something." Inez crossed the room and knelt to Junie's level. "Not here," she said. "Not tonight. Not ever." Junie nodded, accepting the rule the way she accepted weather. Before lying down, she pulled a pen from her backpack and wrote on the napkin Calder had given her. Neat, careful letters: wipe table, water plant, fold towels. She placed it on the counter where it could be seen. "I like lists," she explained. "They help me stay." Calder's chest tightened. He recognized the language. He'd spoken it once himself years ago when survival had felt conditional. "Junie," he said softly, "you don't have to earn your place here." She paused, then nodded. "Okay," she said. "Just tonight." As the lights dimmed, Calder stood alone in the kitchen, staring at the small napkin list. Outside, the city exhaled cold air into the dark. Inside, something fragile had been entrusted to him, and he already knew doing this right would cost him more than money. The townhouse settled into night the way a museum does, quiet, preserved, almost reverent. Calder stood at the top of the stairs long after the lights were dimmed. From where he was, he could see the edge of the living room sofa, the blanket tucked neatly around a small figure. Junie slept fully dressed. Her shoes aligned beneath the coffee table, her backpack looped around one arm as if it might wander off without permission. She breathed softly. Even in sleep, she was careful. Calder didn't step closer. He didn't check her pockets or ask questions that would turn kindness into interrogation. Instead, he adjusted the thermostat by 1 degree and turned off a lamp that hummed too loudly. The house echoed not with sound, but with absence. In his office, the city lights framed old decisions in glass and steel. Calder opened a drawer he rarely touched and found the document he tried not to remember. 12 years ago. A signature. A restructuring plan praised for efficiency. A shelter closed quietly 2 months later. No headlines. No follow-up. Just a space where warmth had once existed. He shut the drawer. Downstairs, Inez moved through the kitchen, wiping counters that were already clean. She paused at the napkin on the counter, the list in careful handwriting. "She thinks staying is a job," Inez said quietly when Calder joined her. "She thinks staying is temporary," Calder replied. Inez folded her arms, eyes kind but firm. "Then tomorrow we make it clear what it isn't." Calder nodded. "I'll call child services first thing." "Official, transparent." "Good," Inez said. "Kindness only works when it's lawful." They stood in silence for a moment, listening to the old house breathe. From the living room came a soft sound, Junie shifting the blanket, rustling. Calder felt the instinct to go to her to promise permanence he didn't yet have the right to give. He stayed where he was. For the first time in years, the house didn't feel empty. It felt like it was waiting. Morning arrived quietly, pale winter light slipping between tall windows like an apology. Junie was already awake. She sat at the kitchen table with the napkin list smoothed flat before her, pencil in hand. When she heard footsteps, she straightened as if summoned by an invisible bell. "Good morning," Calder said. "Good morning, sir," Junie replied, then corrected herself. "Mr. Calder." "Just Calder," he said, pouring coffee he didn't drink. "Did you sleep okay?" She nodded. "Yes. Thank you for the blanket." Inez placed toast on a plate, butter melting into the bread. "Eat first," she said gently. "Lists can wait." Junie hesitated, then complied. After a few bites, she slid the napkin forward. "I can start with the table," she offered. "Then the plant by the window. It looks thirsty." Calder sat across from her, close enough to be present, far enough to be safe. "Junie," he said carefully, You don't need to do any of that to stay. She looked confused, not resistant, just uncertain, as if he'd changed the rules mid-game. I like helping, she said. It makes things even. Inez crouched beside her. Helping is something families do, not something you trade for space. Junie considered this, chewing slowly. So I can help. But it doesn't mean I go if I don't. That's right, Calder said. Your place isn't conditional. Junie nodded, but she didn't erase the list. Instead, she added a small star beside each item. Calder made the call to Child Services in full view, speaker on. He gave his name, his address, his intent. I have a child here temporarily, he said. She's safe-fed and supervised. I want to proceed correctly. Junie listened, silent, absorbing the tone more than the words. When the call ended, she picked up the napkin and folded it neatly. Can I still water the plant, she asked. Calder smiled, careful not to promise too much. If you want to. She watered it slowly, precisely, like the act mattered. And it did. Mara Ellison arrived just after noon, her coat dusted with winter grit, her clipboard held like a shield against assumptions. She knelt to Junie's eye level before asking a single question. Hi, Junie. I'm Mara. Do you feel safe here? Yes, Junie said without hesitation. Mara nodded, made a note, then stood. I'm going to ask some grown-up questions now. You don't have to answer them. Junie retreated to the sofa with a book Inez had chosen, age-appropriate, cheerful, safe. The adults spoke softly in the kitchen, voices measured, procedural. Mara inspected the guest area, the kitchen, the bathroom. She asked about food school plans, sleeping arrangements. Calder answered plainly without embellishment. She arrived last night, he said. I contacted your office first thing this morning. That was the right call, Mara said. Temporary arrangements are allowed. With limits. What kind of limits? Calder asked. No payment. No expectation of labor. Clear understanding that housing isn't earned. Calder nodded. We've set that boundary. Mara glanced at the napkin list on the counter. Her expression tightened, not in anger but concern. I see children do this sometimes, she said quietly. They learn early that usefulness equals safety. Calder felt the weight of the sentence settle in his chest. Mara returned to the living room. Junie, she said gently, for now you can stay here while we sort paperwork. I'll be checking in. Junie nodded. Okay. No celebration. No fear. Just acceptance. As Mara prepared to leave, she turned back to Calder. You're doing well so far, she said. Just remember, procedure can feel cold, but it exists to protect. Calder watched her go, the door closing with a careful click. Across the room, Junie sat cross-legged on the sofa, reading the backpack still within reach. For the first time, Calder understood the hardest part wouldn't be being kind. It would be staying kind inside the rules. Calder wrote the rules by hand, not because they needed to be written, but because writing slowed him down. It forced intention into every line. No work is required. No chores are tied to staying. Help is optional and never counted. Junie's place here is not earned. He taped the paper to the inside of a kitchen cabinet at Junie's eye level. When he called her over, she stood with her hands behind her back, waiting like someone expecting an evaluation. These are the house rules, Calder said. They're for me as much as they're for you. Junie read each line carefully. Her lips moved silently. When she finished, she frowned, not in disagreement, but in uncertainty. So, if I don't help, she said, nothing bad happens. Nothing happens, Calder replied. Inez smiled. You're allowed to just be. Junie nodded slowly, then glanced toward the cabinet again, as if memorizing it. Later, while Calder worked from the study, he heard soft movement in the kitchen. Junie was there with Inez, drying dishes that Inez had washed herself. I like doing this, Junie said. It makes the room feel done. Inez watched her closely. Do you know you don't have to? Junie nodded. Yes, I just want to. That night, Calder found a new napkin on the counter. Red library book, water plant. Say thank you. The last item made him pause. In bed, Junie slept with the backpack at her feet, now not clutched, just nearby. A small shift, almost invisible. Downstairs, Calder stood beneath the cabinet where the rules were posted, rereading his own handwriting. Rules were supposed to protect people from harm. He hoped quietly that these would also protect Junie from herself. Time changed the house in increments too small to measure. Junie learned the names of rooms and used them carefully, as if borrowing them. The front room, not the living room. The small table, not the dining table. Ownership was a language she hadn't learned yet. Every afternoon, she returned from school enrollment meetings with Mara's checklist stamped and signed. She never complained about waiting rooms or forms. She colored while adults talked, humming softly to herself. Inez taught her how to make cocoa without spilling. Calder showed her the thermostat and explained that warmth didn't cost extra here. One evening, Calder found Junie in the study, standing far from his desk, looking at the books. "You can come closer," he said. "I'm just reading titles," she replied. "They're like doors." He let her choose one. She chose a library book not his, used to rules she didn't want to break. They read together without touching, sitting at opposite ends of the sofa. At one point, Junie laughed, quick, surprised, as if it escaped without permission. Calder looked up, startled. "Sorry," she said automatically. "You don't have to be sorry for laughing," he said. She considered this. Okay. Later, Inez found Calder staring at the plant Junie watered every morning. "She's settling," Inez said. "She's adapting," Calder corrected. "There's a difference." That night, Junie placed her backpack in the closet for the first time. The door stayed open, but the gesture mattered. On the counter, the napkin list grew shorter. Water plant. Read. No more proving. Calder felt something loosen in his chest and then tighten again. Because nothing gentle ever stayed untouched for long. Owen Park didn't comment on the view from Calder's office. He never did. He listened instead, hands folded, eyes alert, as Calder explained the arrangement, the rules, the calls made, the visits logged. "You've done everything right," Owen said finally. "Which doesn't mean you're safe." Calder leaned back, rubbing his temples. "What's the risk? Perception," Owen replied. "Intent doesn't always survive translation." Calder nodded. "There's more." He opened a drawer and slid a document across the desk. The paper was old but immaculate. His signature sat at the bottom, confident, final. 12 years ago, Calder said this closed a shelter. Owen read silently. "It didn't say that." "No," Calder agreed. "It said optimize resources." The shelter shut down 3 months later. Quietly. No lawsuits, no investigations. Just children relocated, some successfully, some untracked. "I didn't follow up," Calder said. "I told myself I wasn't responsible for outcomes. Just decisions." Owen looked up. "And Junie changed that." "Yes." Owen exhaled. "If this escalates, that document becomes context. People will ask if you're trying to fix the past," Calder said. "But not by bending the rules." Owen nodded. "Then we prepare for scrutiny." As if summoned by the word, Calder's phone vibrated. A message from Mara. "We received a report. Anonymous. No allegation of harm. Just concern." Calder closed his eyes. Outside, the city moved on indifferent. Inside, a careful life began to tremble, not from cruelty, but from the weight of being seen. Hadirth looked at Owen. "What happens now?" Owen didn't sugarcoat it. Now he said, "We prove that kindness can survive daylight." The report arrived without drama. No sirens, no raised voices, no urgent knock at the door. It came as an email, precise, sterile, impossible to argue with. Calder read it twice before the words settled concern regarding a minor potentially performing labor in exchange for housing. No accusations, no claims of harm, just a legal phrase heavy enough to bend the air around it. Mara Ellison returned that afternoon, her expression unchanged, but her posture firmer. "This doesn't mean anyone did something wrong," she said carefully. "It means we have to look closer." Junie sat on the sofa with her book feet tucked beneath her, listening without appearing to listen. Children learned early how to make themselves small when adults used careful voices. "What happens now?" Calder asked. "Documentation," Mara said. "Interviews, temporary safeguards." Junie looked up. "Am I in trouble?" "No," Mara replied immediately. "You didn't do anything wrong?" Junie nodded, but her fingers tightened around the page. That evening, Calder found the napkin list shorter again. Water plant. Red. He folded it once and placed it in a drawer, not to hide it, but to protect it from misinterpretation. At dinner, Junie ate less than usual. "Do I need to stop helping?" she asked quietly. Calder chose his words like stepping stones across thin ice. "You don't need to help, and helping never decides whether you stay." She absorbed this, then asked the question beneath the question. "Will I have to go?" Calder didn't lie. "I don't know yet." Junie accepted the answer without protest. Later, she moved her backpack from the closet back to the sofa. That night, Calder stood at the kitchen window watching snow gather in corners the city forgot to clear. Owen's words echoed in his mind, "Kindness doesn't always survive translation." For the first time, Calder understood the danger wasn't malice. It was misunderstanding and the speed with which good intentions could be rewritten by strangers. The notice came the next morning. Formal, courteous, unforgiving. A review would be conducted. During that period, temporary placement options would be considered to ensure neutrality and protection. Calder read the line twice, then a third time aloud, as if clarity might soften it. Junie stood in the doorway, already dressed, backpack zipped. "I can go," she said. The words were not dramatic. They were practiced. "No one said that," Calder replied, though the room knew otherwise. Junie moved quietly, gathering her things with careful efficiency. Shoes aligned, jacket folded, the napkin list placed back on the counter face down this time. Inez stepped in, voice firm but kind. "Sweetheart, no one is asking you to leave today." Junie nodded. "I know. I just like being ready." Calder felt something crack, subtle, internal, dangerous. He crouched to her level, keeping space, keeping rules. "You didn't cause this," he said. "Adults are sorting adult things." Junie looked at him, eyes steady. "Grown-ups always say that." Later, Mara arrived again, clipboard heavier now with procedure. "There may be a short-term placement during review," she explained. "It's standard. It doesn't mean wrongdoing." Junie listened. Then she asked, "Will the plant die?" Inez blinked, then smiled. "I'll water it every day." Junie nodded, satisfied. That afternoon, Calder found a folded paper tucked beneath the napkin list. It was Junie's handwriting, small, precise. "I finished my helpful things for the week. Thank you for letting me stay longer than I thought I could." Calder read it once, then again. He realized then what she believed, that staying had an expiration date she was responsible for managing. That night, the townhouse felt colder than the weather outside. Calder sat alone at the kitchen table long after Junie went to sleep, the note unfolded in front of him. For the first time, wealth felt irrelevant, because the cost of doing this right was no longer abstract. The decision came quietly, the way difficult things often do. Mara explained it in calm sentences, each one carefully padded with reassurance. "During the review, Junie will stay at a licensed short-term home," she said. "It's temporary, structured, safe." Junie nodded as if she'd already accepted it. When she asked, "Tomorrow morning." That night, Junie packed, slowly folding clothes that weren't hers with respect. She lined up her shoes one last time, then sat on the sofa, hands folded, waiting. Calder stood a few feet away, powerless in a way no boardroom had ever prepared him for. Junie reached into her backpack and pulled out a small piece of paper. She placed it on the kitchen counter beside the plant. "This is for you," she said. Calder unfolded it carefully. I'm sorry if I stayed too much. I tried to do everything right. The words blurred, he blinked them back into focus. You didn't stay too much, he said, voice steady by force. You stayed exactly as you should have. Junie nodded, absorbing the tone more than the words. I liked it here, she said. It was quiet in a good way. Inez knelt and hugged her, brief, appropriate, full of care. Junie returned it gently, then stepped back. When the door closed behind her bedroom, Calder sat alone with the note in his hands. He understood now the danger had never been that Junie would work to stay. It was that she believed she had to. Outside, snow fell again, covering the city in clean white silence. Inside, Calder made a decision that would not be solved with money or apologies. He would follow every rule. He would face every question. And he would not let this story end with a child believing kindness was something she had to earn. The morning was too bright for what it was about to take. Sunlight poured into the townhouse like it had permission. It made the marble floors look warm, the brass fixtures look gentle, the whole place looked like a promise. Calder hated the light for that, for pretending nothing was changing. Junie was already dressed. Not rushed, not trembling, just ready. Her backpack sat upright by the door, zipped, straps straightened. She stood beside it with her hands folded in front of her coat, eyes calm but watchful, like a kid at an airport gate who knew flights didn't wait for feelings. Mara Ellison arrived with a small folder and a softer tone than yesterday. Procedure didn't mean coldness, Calder reminded himself. It meant boundaries that existed so nobody could blur them. Junie, Mara said, kneeling to her eye level again. We're going somewhere safe for a short time while adults do paperwork. You'll have a warm bed, meals, a schedule, and I'll check in. Junie nodded. Okay. Calder's throat tightened. He searched for a sentence that wasn't a promise he couldn't legally keep. You'll be safe, he managed, and you'll have people who care about you. Junie looked up at him, steady, bright-eyed, unasking. I know, she said. Then, as if adding something practical, do I bring my book? Yes, Inez said quickly, placing the library book on top of Junie's backpack like it was the most important item in the house. And your pencil, and your sweater. Junie accepted each thing with quiet gratitude, like receiving tools, not comfort. Mara opened the folder and explained the temporary conditions to Calder and Inez in clear, careful language. No unapproved contact that could be interpreted as pressure. No statements to media, no side arrangements. Transparency, structure, safeguards for everyone, especially Junie. Calder listened, absorbing the rules like a vow. I understand, he said. What I want is stability for her, the lawful kind. Mara's expression softened by a fraction. That matters, she said, more than you know. Junie turned toward the kitchen, suddenly walking to the counter where the plant sat by the window. Its leaves were brighter than yesterday, watered with the kind of attention that made small things survive. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded napkin. A new list, smaller than before, written in the same careful handwriting. Water plant. Red. Be good at staying. Junie stared at it for a moment, then crossed out the last line slowly, thoughtfully, as if she was trying on a new reality. She set the napkin beneath the pot like a secret encouragement. Then she returned to the door. Mara offered her hand. Junie didn't take it right away, only because she didn't want to assume. Mara waited. Junie finally placed her small hand in Mara's, the gesture simple and safe. Calder's instinct rose, step forward, hug her, promise her the world. He didn't. He stayed within the rules. He let her dignity remain intact. Junie glanced back once. Not dramatic, not pleading. She lifted her hand, a small wave, a quiet goodbye, and then she stepped outside the winter air, swallowing her coat, her backpack, her brave posture. The door closed with a careful click. The townhouse didn't become empty. It became silent in a way that hurt. After Junie left the house, behaved as if nothing had happened. The thermostat kept humming. The clock kept ticking. The refrigerator light still came on when the door opened. There was no cinematic collapse, no shattered glass, no dramatic music. Just the unbearable normalcy of a place that had briefly held a child's presence, and now had to admit it was gone. Calder walked into the kitchen and stared at the plant by the window. Its leaves were damp, its soil dark. The napkin tucked beneath the pot peeked out like the corner of a letter you weren't supposed to read. He didn't pull it out. He couldn't. If he read it now, he might do something impulsive, something human, something that could be twisted into pressure. So he left it, a small proof of her untouched. Inez moved quietly, making tea she didn't drink. She cleaned a counter already clean. She looked at the sofa, then looked away. She didn't cry, Inez said softly. Calder's voice came out rough. She didn't need to. She's practiced. That word practiced sat in the room like a weight. He went to the living room and sat where Junie used to sit with her book. The fabric still held the faint warmth of her small body. He thought about how she laughed once, quick and startled, like joy had slipped out without permission. He had spent years believing loneliness was manageable, that it was just a side effect of ambition, something you accepted in exchange for control. Junie hadn't offered him control. She had offered him a reason. A phone buzzed on the table, Owen Park. Calder answered immediately. "Tell me, I spoke with Mara." Owen said, "The hearing date is set. 2 weeks." Calder closed his eyes. 2 weeks felt both short and endless. What are they calling it? "A protective review," Owen said. "Not criminal, not accusatory, but high scrutiny. They'll evaluate whether the living arrangement created an implicit transaction." Calder's jaw tightened. "It didn't." "I know," Owen replied. "We just have to prove it the way courts understand." Silence expanded. Outside, a car passed on wet pavement, the sound like a slow exhale. Owen Calder said, "There's something else." The old signature, Owen said quietly, "Already there." Calder swallowed. "They'll use it. They'll ask about it," Owen corrected. "Context isn't always a weapon. Sometimes it's a mirror." Calder stared at the kitchen doorway as if Junie might appear with her backpack and her careful manners and ask for permission to exist. "I don't want to win," Calder said. "I want her to stop believing she has to earn safety." "That's the right goal," Owen replied, "and we're going to pursue it the right way." After the call, Calder stood and walked toward his study. On the way, he passed the cabinet where the rules were taped at Junie's eye level. No work is required. No chores are tied to staying. Her place is not earned. Calder read them slowly, like prayer. Then he did something he hadn't done in years, something that had nothing to do with business. He wrote a new page beneath the first, "We will not rush. We will not hide. We will not buy silence. We will choose lawful kindness even when it hurts." He taped it up. And for the first time since Junie left the house, felt like it wasn't merely waiting. It felt like it was preparing. Truth, Owen Park explained, was not a feeling. Truth was a file. It was timestamps. It was documented calls. It was consistency. It was the difference between "I meant well" and "here is how I acted responsibly." They met in Owen's office, downtown, glass walls, clean lines of view of Boston that looked like confidence. Calder sat across from him, with a folder of his own printouts of call logs, notes from Mara, a school enrollment checklist, and a photo of the kitchen rules posted inside the cabinet. Owen spread everything out like a map. First, he said, tapping the call log, "You contacted child welfare within hours. That matters." Calder nodded, jaw tight. "I wanted transparency." Second. Owen continued, "No payment, no wages, no agreements. You explicitly told her housing was not conditional. We'll show that through your written house rules and Inez's testimony." Inez sat at the corner of the conference table, hands folded. Her eyes were steady. "I'll tell the truth," she said. "That child was never asked to earn anything. She helped sometimes because she wanted to, and we told her she didn't have to. Owen nodded. Exactly. Calder's fingers pressed against the edge of the folder. But they'll say an orphaned child can't truly consent. They'll say her wanting to help is learned survival. They may. Owen agreed. Which is why we don't argue that Junie's behavior was fine. We argue that the adults responded correctly to it. He pointed to Mara's visit notes. Mara observed boundaries. She didn't see coercion. She saw safety, food, warmth, and adults following procedure. Calder exhaled slowly, and Celine Klein Owen's expression sharpened, respectful. She's smart. She will argue precedent, how systems can disguise harm under helpfulness. She will not call you a monster. She'll call you a risk. Calder swallowed. Being labeled a risk felt worse than being disliked. It meant his intentions didn't matter. Owen leaned forward. So we do 3 things. He raised one finger. We demonstrate structure, how the household prevented any transaction. Second finger. We demonstrate oversight, how you invited welfare involvement immediately. Third finger. We demonstrate motive but carefully, not as a sob story, as accountability. Calder's eyes flicked to the drawer in his mind, where the old signature lived. My past. Owen nodded once. We acknowledge it without letting it define you. You didn't create Junie's hardship, but you refuse to ignore it now. Inez's voice was quiet. Will Junie have to testify? Owen's answer came gentle and precise, only if necessary, and only in a protected manner with Mara present. We don't put children on display. Courts don't want that either. Calder's shoulders lowered a fraction. Good. Owen slid a blank sheet of paper toward Calder. Write down exactly what you said to Junie about helping. Calder stared at the page. His pen hovered. Then the words came back clear as the kitchen light. You don't have to earn your place here. You stay because you're a child. That's it. He wrote them, slowly, carefully, like building a bridge plank by plank. When he finished, Owen nodded. That's your anchor. Calder looked up. What if the judge asks the question that cuts through everything? Owen didn't blink. They will. Calder's mouth went dry. Why did she think she had to earn safety? Owen's voice softened. And that's where the story becomes bigger than you. Bigger than her. Bigger than money. Calder stared out the window at the city that had kept moving while Junie was relocated by procedure. We don't just win, Calder said. We change what she believes. Owen gathered the documents into a single thick folder and closed it with a quiet finality. Then we don't perform, he said. We prove, and we protect. Outside, winter wind pressed against the glass. Inside, Calder held the file of truth in both hands, and for the first time it felt heavier than any fortune he'd ever earned. The hearing room did not look like justice. It looked like order. Clean wood, neutral walls, chairs aligned with intention. Nothing intimidating, yet everything designed to remove emotion from the equation. Calder sat at the long table beside Owen Park, hands folded, posture composed. Across from them sat Celine Klein, representing the child advocacy organization that had requested the review. Calm, focused, not unkind. Junie was not present. That Calder reminded himself was the point. The judge entered quietly. No gavel strike, just presence. We are here, the judge began to determine whether a temporary living arrangement created an implicit exchange between an adult guardian figure and a minor. Celine stood first. This case is not about cruelty, she said. It is about risk. History shows us that when children learn safety through usefulness, harm doesn't need to be intentional to be real. Calder kept his eyes forward. No reaction. Owen's pen moved steadily across paper. Selina continued. The child offered labor, however small, in exchange for housing. That belief alone requires scrutiny. Owen rose. With respect, he said, belief does not equal instruction. The adults in this household explicitly rejected any transaction. They documented boundaries. They contacted child welfare immediately. The judge nodded. Miss Klein-Selenia inclined her head. I do not dispute that Mr. Wexley followed procedure. I question whether procedure is enough when a child has learned that survival depends on usefulness. The words landed cleanly. No accusation, just gravity. Mara Ellison was called next. She testified evenly her visits, her observations, Junie's demeanor. She was fed warm, supervised, Mara said. She was calm. The adults were compliant. I observed no coercion. And the list, Celine asked gently. The list, Mara replied, was created by the child. When I raised concern, the adults responded appropriately. Calder exhaled silently. Celine turned to the judge. This is exactly why we are here. No one is at fault, and yet the pattern exists. Owen stood again. Patterns don't live in houses. They live in systems. And this household interrupted one. The judge leaned back, fingers steepled. Mr. Wexley, the judge said, you will speak next. Calder stood. He did not dramatize. He did not apologize for kindness. I never asked Junie to earn her place, he said. I told her clearly that she stayed because she was a child. That's it. And yet Selene interjected softly she believed otherwise. Calder nodded. Yes, and that belief is what I'm trying to end lawfully. Silence followed. The judge made a note. Proceed, the judge said. And the room tightened because now came the question Calder had feared most. The judge did not raise their voice. They didn't need to. Mr. Wexley, the judge said, why did this child believe she had to earn safety? The question did not accuse. It dissected. Calder swallowed. This was not a legal puzzle. This was a mirror. He could have spoken about psychology, about scarcity, about learned behavior. He didn't. Because Calder said carefully, someone taught her that care expires. Celine's eyes sharpened, not hostile, but attentive. Calder continued. Not in my house, before it. Somewhere else. Repeatedly enough that she learned to manage her own removal. Owen stayed silent. This was Calder's moment alone. I didn't create that belief, Calder said, but I recognized it. Because I once signed a document that helped create places where children learned it. The room shifted. Selene did not object. The judge's pen paused. 12 years ago, Calder said I approved a restructuring plan. Efficient, legal, praised, a shelter closed afterward, quietly. I didn't follow up. I told myself outcomes weren't my responsibility. His voice remained steady, but his hands tightened. I was wrong. Celine stood slowly. So this arrangement, she said, was an attempt to repair that past. Calder met her eyes. It was an attempt not to repeat it. Selene considered this. And if this child had never written a list, never offered to help, she would still have stayed, Calder said immediately. And how can we know that, Celine asked. Calder reached into his folder and slid a page forward. My house rules, he said. Written before any report, before any hearing. They state explicitly that housing is never conditional. The judge reviewed the page. Celine nodded once. Rules can exist on paper while pressure exists in practice. Calder didn't argue. That's why he said I called child services myself, because I didn't trust my intentions alone. The judge looked up. Mr. Wexley, are you asking for guardianship? Yes, Calder said. Through proper channels. With oversight, with conditions if necessary. Selena's voice softened. You understand guardianship is not redemption. I do, Calder replied. It's responsibility. A pause. Then the judge said, we will hear from the child briefly protected, and only if necessary. Calder's heart stopped. Mara stood. Junie is willing to speak, with limits. The judge nodded. Bring her in. The door opened quietly. Junie entered holding her backpack, not as armor now, but habit. She looked smaller in the hearing room, but not broken. Calder did not wave, did not reach, did not promise. He stayed where he was and trusted her voice. Junie sat at the small table prepared for her. Mara stayed close, not touching, just present. The judge smiled gently. Junie, the judge said you don't have to answer anything you don't want to. Junie nodded. Okay. Celine spoke first, her tone careful. Junie, can you tell us why you wanted to help at Mr. Wexley's house? Junie thought for a moment. Silence stretched, but it wasn't fear. It's easier to stay, Junie said, when you're useful. The room held its breath. And who told you that? Celine asked. No one, Junie said. Then she corrected herself. Lots of places. Calder felt the words land not as blame, but truth. Owen did not interrupt. The judge leaned forward. Did Mr. Wexley tell you that you had to help to stay? Junie shook her head. No. Did anyone in the house know? Then why did you help? The judge asked. Junie's fingers tightened around the strap of her backpack. I didn't help to be paid, she said quietly. I helped to be good at staying. Celine closed her notebook. Junie continued, gaining steadiness. When you're good at staying, people don't get tired of you. You don't take too much. The judge's voice was gentle. Did you feel safe there? Yes. Did you feel pressured? Junie considered the word. No. I felt worried, but not because of them. Mara placed a calming hand near Junie, not touching. Grounding. Owen asked one question, his voice respectful. Junie, if you didn't help, what would have happened? Junie looked at Calder not for permission, but recognition. He told me I would still stay, she said. I just didn't know how to believe it yet. Something broke open in the room, not noise, understanding. The judge took a long breath. Thank you, Junie, they said. You did very well. Junie stood. She didn't cry. She didn't smile. As Mara guided her toward the door, Junie paused and turned not to Calder but to the judge. Can I ask something? She said. Yes, the judge replied. If I stay somewhere, Junie asked carefully, and I don't help, do I still count? The question fell into the room like a final stone. The judge answered without hesitation. Yes, they said. You always count. Junie nodded slowly, as if the sentence was something she would carry for a long time. Then she left the room. Calder did not move. He couldn't. Because in that moment, the case stopped being about legality. It became about whether the world could convince one child, just one, that safety was not something she had to earn. And the room knew it. The judge did not rush. They reviewed notes once more, not because they needed clarity, but because moments like this deserved weight. This court finds, the judge said finally, no evidence of coercion, exploitation, or conditional housing. Calder's shoulders loosened by a fraction. The adults in this case acted responsibly, the judge continued. They contacted child welfare, promptly set explicit boundaries, and complied fully with oversight. Celine Klein stood. Your Honor, we request safeguards, not punishment. This case should strengthen the system, not test its limits. The judge nodded. Agreed. They turned back to Calder. Mr. Wexley, guardianship is not granted today, but authorization is given to proceed under supervision with the clear understanding that this child's place is never transactional. Calder rose. I accept all conditions. Then we are aligned, the judge said. The room exhaled. No cheers, no victory speeches. Just the quiet relief of a child not being reduced to a risk. As they adjourned, Celine approached Calder not as an opponent, but as a professional who had seen too much. You did something rare, she said. You didn't try to win fast. Calder nodded. I didn't want her to learn that the loudest voice wins, Celine allowed a small smile. Then she's already safer than most. Outside the courtroom, winter light cut through tall windows. Calder stood still for a moment, hands at his sides, absorbing what had almost been lost. For the first time since Junie left the house, the future didn't feel like a threat. It felt like a responsibility he was finally ready to carry. The townhouse prepared not with extravagance, but with intention. A small bedroom, neutral colors, a desk by the window, a bookshelf with library cards tucked inside the first drawer. No locks, no cameras, no signs that said you are being watched. Mara Ellison walked through with her clipboard checking boxes. School enrollment is pending, she said. Weekly check-ins for now. Optional counseling resources available. Calder nodded. Whatever supports her best. Inez placed a mug of cocoa on the counter and waited. Mara paused by the plant near the window. She watered this every morning, she said. She still can, Calder replied. If she wants. Mara looked at him. Really looked. Most people say that. Fewer mean it. The doorbell rang. Junie stood on the other side, backpack on both shoulders, posture careful but different now. Less braced, more curious. Calder opened the door slowly. Hi, Junie said. Hi, Calder replied. She stepped inside, eyes scanning the familiar space like someone returning to a place that had waited. Mara spoke gently. Junie, this is still a temporary arrangement. We'll keep talking. You're not locked into anything. Junie nodded. Okay. She set her backpack down, not by the door this time, but beside the sofa. Inez smiled. Outside, winter moved on. Inside, something settled. Junie walked to the window without being told. The plant stood where she had left it. Leaves bright, soil dark. She reached out, then stopped, turned back to Calder. Can I water it? She asked. Calder didn't answer right away. He knelt to her level, not as a savior, not as a judge. Just an adult who understood the weight of permission. You don't have to do anything to stay, he said. You already belong here. Junie listened carefully, then she nodded. I know, she said. I just like taking care of things. Calder smiled, soft, real. Then yes, you can water it. She poured slowly, precisely the way she always had. When she finished, she set the watering can down and wiped her hands on her jeans. What's for dinner? She asked. Inez laughed softly from the kitchen. Something warm. Junie sat on the sofa and opened her book. The backpack stayed where it was untouched. Calder watched her for a moment, then turned to the cabinet where the rules were still taped. No work is required. Her place is not earned. He left them there. Not as protection anymore. As truth. Outside, the city kept moving. Inside, a child read quietly in a house that had learned how to hold her. And for the first time, Junie didn't try to be good at staying. She just stayed. Did this story leave a lasting impression on you? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment, rate it from 1 to 10, and tap the end screen to see another heartwarming story waiting for you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, then tap the